By the way, I'd just like to point out that right now in the Court of Appeal, a judge is pronouncing on the case of Valdo Calocane. He is the 32-year-old who stabbed 3 people to death in Nottingham in June last year. You'll remember Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley-Kuma, who were both students, and Ian Coates, who was the school caretaker, both died. Also attempted murder of 3 others. The Court of Appeal is hearing an appeal about the basically indefinite hospital order he was given after the Attorney General referred the case to the Court of Appeal, basically arguing that this should be a stiffer sentence because he pleaded guilty to manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility instead of murder or being tried for murder. We're going to just see, I believe the court has just ruled that that the Calocane sentencing decision was upheld and that the original sentence was not unduly lenient. We'll give you some more details on that as we get it. That is the case of Valdo Calocane, the Nottingham knife killer, that the sentence was not unduly lenient. 3 judges today refusing to change the sentence of the man given an indefinite hospital order. Tom Slater, I mean, just your thoughts on that briefly, because look, I mean, you could argue, well, he's locked away. That's what matters. But I always thought it was rather bizarre that he was allowed to plead guilty to manslaughter of 3 people who he stabbed to death in the most vicious, horrific, unprovoked attack. Yes, motivated by schizophrenia. Yeah. He is a deeply, deeply mentally ill man. But that he was also then convicted of the attempted murder of 3 others. Well, how can one of them be attempted murder one side and the other be just manslaughter? He was either capable of making that decision with one side or the other. I don't understand how these 2 charges effectively add up. No,
I completely agree. That's the part of it that really didn't make any sense whatsoever. On the other side of whether or not he should be able to plead diminished responsibility and whether or not he should be in a prison or, you know, a basic mental institution, which we should remember, it's not as if he's going to a sort of holiday camp as a consequence of this, and he is going to be locked up away from the public. You know, it's one of those tricky things where on the one hand it would feel kind of emotionally satisfying for him to be kind of put behind bars proper. We do have these measures in place for a reason, because of the fact that you have different prisoners with different needs, different levels of security necessary.
And he clearly is mentally ill.
Absolutely.
I mean, he'd be a risk to other prisoners.
This wasn't one of those kind of slightly spurious ones which is claimed in order to try and get a softer handed things. He's obviously a deeply mentally ill individual.
But I can understand for the families how distressing that is when they know what the horrific murders of their... Now, they were murders, I'm sorry, of their youngsters, and indeed in the case of Ian Coates, their father. It seems to me to be blatantly obvious. The key thing for me, though, is just the knowledge that it should be, say it's an indefinite life order, a hospital order, but it never is in this country. The fact that there are ever appeals and someone could possibly be let out again. If you commit crimes like this, you come out in a coffin. I don't see what people find confusing about this. When they got rid of capital punishment, when hanging was ended in this country, the deal with the public, who did not support this move, by the way, and I support not being capital punishment. I know people think I'm a hang 'em and flog 'em. I'm not. I think people should be held behind bars and not. I don't think we should demean ourselves to their level by having state-sponsored murder. But the deal was that people went to prison for life. And that means coming out in a box and not before. And I don't understand why so many of the sort of bleeding hearters working in our criminal justice system seem to think that it's appropriate for people to be considered, even if it's 40 years on. No, the punishment is that you go away for life.
And I think that's one thing that people are really waking up to, particularly in the sort of context of the whole legal system crumbling over recent years, is how, even if we're not talking about murder, but we're talking about other forms of violent and sexual crime, sexual violence and so on, the sentences are a joke in many of these instances. And of course, it's, you know, you should reserve kind of prison sentences, let alone lengthy prison sentences, for people who are generally a threat to the public. But even when that's a clear-cut case, for some reason, they're walking free in relatively short order. And,
and you're not a hang 'em and flog 'em person at all.
Not at all. You reserve it for certain cases, but the fact that it's, for whatever reason, that's not taking
Killing
place.
Killing 3 people, attempted to kill 2 others, I'd go... Well, sorry, 3 others. Yeah, I definitely think that would be one of those cases. I also just want to ask you about... this is someone who's been, you know, convicted, you know, of his crimes. What about those people who just get the finger pointed at them? Because last night MPs voted by a majority of 170 to 169, largely Labour and Lib Dem MPs, with the help of new Labour MP Natalie Elphicke, by the way, used to be a hang 'em and flog 'em type. Loads of Tory MPs didn't even bother voting. Basically, they argued that MPs who are arrested, not charged, arrested for violence or sexual offences should be barred from the House of Commons. Basically, it's a safeguarding issue for staff in the Commons. Even, say, before they are charged, or even if they are never charged, they would face that. Have we completely given up on the concept of innocence until proven guilty?
It certainly feels like that. And you understand the good intentions behind anything like this. You understand that people want to, again, make sure that MPs feel like they're working in a safer environment, their staffers and so on. But this is something which you might have an individual, they've already got the cloud of suspicion hanging over them, they might already be in the early stages of an investigation. This does just basically kind of pronounce them guilty instantly. And
if you're saying people need to be safeguarded, you're saying it's because that person is guilty.
This person is guilty. And there have been a number of cases recently, I won't name names because some of them in public, some of them will have kind of faded from view, who have been accused of these crimes and who have eventually been arrested, been questioned and so on, who have been eventually completely exonerated. Do we really think it would aid justice in that period for that person to also have been basically kind of had the scarlet letter put on them and put entirely out of Parliament for that entire time as well? That's
not able to vote to represent their constituents as well as another factor. Again, I do just think, again, so I mean, Jess Phillips, the Labour MP who's pushed for this, saying, you know, she'd spoken to 2 women who'd been raped by MPs. Now, I don't know who those women are. Obviously, they've got right to anonymity, but were they women who'd been raped by MPs or women who say they've been raped by MPs? We don't know. The cases have to go to court for us to know those things.